going on?
Yeah, I think it's the Mississauga net. That'll be on here very shortly by the look of it. It's 8:25. I think they start up about 8:30. So, yeah, we'll keep it short, but stick around and check in. They usually have pretty good crew. I see the ham conference is in here too. Yeah, it is. So John out in the east side of the island here has got things hooked up around the world.
All right, good deal, Reg. I'll sit on the side here, so I'll back out, and you have yourself a good day, and I'll catch up with you maybe in a day, leading up to your big Friday night net. All right, Reg, have a good day. N4RNW.
Yeah, very good, Harold. All right, we'll get things going here shortly, I would think. So we'll catch you later down the log, as they say. VK60QQ Australia. Good morning. Station calling CQ. I think I heard it right. Station calling. This is Kilo Charlie 4 Bravo Oscar Golf KC4BOG. Over.
Good evening. This is Victor Alpha 3 Alpha Zulu Alpha, and my name is Brian. I am the controller tonight for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net. This net is available on the club's VHF repeater and echo link between 20:30 hours and approximately 21:45 hours local time in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. It is also streamed live on YouTube, where archives of previous nets can be found. Stand by, please. To participate in the net on the VE3MIS VHF repeater, tune 145.430 megahertz with a negative 600 kilohertz offset and a 103.5 hertz tone. To participate on Echolink, connect to the TechLink conference node number 9229. To listen live on YouTube and comment, search YouTube for VE3MIS. Stand by, please. If you would like to find out more about the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club, visit our website at www.VE3MIS.ca. That's Victor Echo 3, Mike India Sierra, Charlie Alpha. Our email address is VE3MIS@RAC.ca. That's Victor Echo 3, Mike India Sierra at Romeo Alpha Charlie Charlie Alpha. Stand by, please. The purpose of this net is to pass news and views along to members and visitors of the club. It also provides experience to volunteer operators in net and emergency operating procedures. All check-ins are welcome, and we especially invite non-members to join in. Stand by, please. The Mississauga Amateur Radio Club meets virtually via Zoom conferencing software on the second and fourth Thursday of each month. Our meetings emphasize comradeship and learning and are open to guests and visitors. See our website to learn how to join virtual meetings. Non-members who wish to attend should email VE3MIS@RAC.ca to obtain instructions for virtual admission. As well as the virtual meetings, there are in-person meetings. Actually, I guess I would describe them as hybrid meetings. And the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club meets at 7:30 on the second and fourth Thursday virtually, but we're also live in person at the St. Thomas à Becket Church Hall, 3535 South Common Court in Mississauga, near the intersection of Erin Mills Parkway and South Common Court. And visitors are encouraged to join us at that location as well. Stand by, please. Just a little announcement for this evening before we get too much further into the net, and that is that there is an executive meeting this Thursday, November 4th, via Zoom conferencing software. A few reminders, too, that on the VE3MIS repeater, VHF repeater, the Cross-Canada IRLP net is heard every Wednesday from 11 until noon, although it has to be dialed in on IRLP 9013. Usually someone's got it connected. And on Friday night, the TechNet can be heard between 8 and 10 p.m. On VE3MIS VHF repeater, although usually people dial it in to conference number 9229. This evening, we've got some interesting questions and considerations for the net. We'll take a quick standby here before we go through this. Standby. Okay, so for this evening, we have a couple of questions, I guess, to consider when you participate, and it's completely optional. If you want to add something about these questions, you're welcome and encouraged to do that. If you're bringing other news or just checking in, that's okay too. But for this evening, we might consider this. Winter weather is coming, to say nothing of the odd autumn storm. Do you remember the Quebec ice storm of 1998 and its surprisingly lengthy impacts? So, here's the question. How long could you operate without mains power? Is your reserve tied up in brand-specific rechargeable batteries, or do you have a general-purpose battery that could be hooked up to anything? Do you feel prepared? Do you feel prepared? I guess that's the big question, isn't it? We'll take a quick standby here for Repeater, stand by, please.
Amateur radio.
Well, with that in mind, the net will be conducted in 2 rounds, a check-in round and a 7-3 round. During the check-in round, check-ins will be called in roughly 2 broad groups of traffic, short-time check-ins and general check-ins. Emergency check-ins will be taken at any time. Sometimes mobile RF and Echolink check-ins may be called by themselves to reduce the risk of doubling. Just listen carefully and check in with the group that best matches your circumstances. And finally, to avoid system timeouts, avoid transmitting more than about 1 minute or so to keep things running smoothly here. Again, your controller for tonight's net is me, Brian, and my call sign is VA3AZA. When you're checking in, announce your call sign using phonetics followed by your first name. And let's see if we've got any short-time check-ins. And we'll take short-time RF check-ins right now. That means that you might be in a hurry. You might probably not going to be around for the second go. If you're out there short time on RF, come now, please.
Echo 3, Juliet Mike Yankee, Murray.
Okay, net control. I heard 1 check in there on RF short time, and I think it was Murray. Murray, hold on a little bit, and we'll look for some Echolink short time. So anyone out there on Echolink who will probably only be able to check in for the first round, come now, please. Echolink only, short time. Come now, please.
Okay, straight 2. Morning from down under.
UK2VY, visited.
And for RNW, Harold, Southwest Florida, short time. Good evening.
Ron in Indiana, short time, over.
Okay, net control. I think I heard 4 check-ins there. The very last check-in, I didn't get a call sign for, but I think the name is Ron. And Ron, if you want to come again with your call sign, that was from. Okay, I think it was from Florida too. But if you want to just come again with your call sign, I'll write that down here. I think that was Ron. Come again, please.
Call here is Kilo Charlie 4, Bravo Oscar Golf. Kilo Charlie 4, Bravo Oscar Golf. Name here is Ron. Romeo Oscar November, and we're in South Central Indiana. Over.
Okay, net control acknowledges KC4BOT, and that's Ron in Indiana. Sorry, Ron, I was looking at the wrong line there. I thought I could just grab that call sign off the screen for a second, and that the other one was in Florida, but you're in Indiana. Well, we got you on the list. Let's go up to VE3JMY Murray. And Murray, hope all is well with you this evening, and we'll pass it over to you. Net control to VE3JMY.
VA3AZA, VE3JMY in the group. Good evening, Brian, and all on frequency. All is well. I hope you and yours are doing fine. Good question about preparedness. With regard to ham radio, I have a couple of handheld battery for handheld radio. I don't really expect to operate too much in a situation like the ice situation. I also have an AM radio with batteries charged up for that, and that's my limit, very limited preparedness. I don't really feel super prepared, but that's the status at this point. Brian, thanks for the question, and we'll be listening. Back to you, Brian.
VE3JMY, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Marie. Well, sounds good. Yeah, a couple of handhelds. Actually, you can go surprisingly long way with charged batteries, especially on low power. Some of those handhelds will get a little power, and sometimes that's all you need. So, Well, hey, that's like you never know when you'll need it. Hopefully, we won't need anything like what was needed during that ice storm in Quebec. I guess in 1998, things were offline for quite a number of days. I remember it quite well. Okay, well, thank you, Murray, for your contribution there. Good to hear from you as usual. And let's go down to VK3HJQ. John, in Australia. John, maybe you can tell us about your preparedness too. Net control to VK3HJQ.
Brian, morning from down under, VK3HJQ. Well, I have absolutely nothing. If the power goes off, I sit here and twiddle my thumbs in the dark. That's about. Actually, I've got a couple of 20-watt solar panels, and I've got two 12-volt batteries that have been sitting in my garage and charging for the last, I don't know how many years, but nothing's connected up in the shack. So, not that I use the shack anyway, I use the internet. So, power goes off, no internet. Although, I have this brilliant plan. I actually have 7.5 amp hour 12-volt battery sitting on the bench here charging, which I was going to make a battery backup for my modem router. That way I can stay on the internet, because the laptop obviously has a battery in it. My larger screen, I'd still need mains power for that, so I probably couldn't use that. But because I got the router still 12 volt, I've been contemplating. I bought a box and I bought the batteries, and they're sitting here, but I haven't put them in a box yet. So that way I could still stay on the internet, assuming the internet wasn't down. That's my main concern. Wasn't worried about the radios, Brian. Over.
VK3HJQ, VA3A3, net controller training. Okay, John, sounds like actually you got quite a few possibilities there. But yeah, the big question, I guess, is, if you've got the power for the laptop and maybe even a radio, is the internet actually going to be functioning in a really bad situation? But you sound more prepared than you may have given an impression of earlier. So, well, you never know. You get it all wired together and you're all set. Excellent. All right, John. Well, let's see. Let's go down to Robert, VK2DY, and I don't know how Robert's feeling about any approaching loss of power or connectivity to the internet, but we'll see how he might handle it. Net control to VK2DY.
Help if I tap the button. Yes, good. What is it? It's still morning. Good morning, this is Robert, Victor Kilo 2 Delta Yankee in Kellyville Ridge, New South Wales, but all part of the urban sprawl that is Sydney. 25 degrees Celsius, sun is shining, sky is partly cloudy. Let's put it that way. What else? That's about it for here. Restrictions are coming off on the 8th of November. Almost all of them. A few still remain, but almost all the restrictions are coming off of COVID on the 8th. Moved up from December 1st. So, and it looks like the Queensland border is going to open, so we'll be able to freely travel anywhere in Australia pretty soon, hopefully. At the moment, we can travel anywhere in the world. That was started on the 1st of November. So maybe we'll be able to travel to Queensland soon, too. Anyway, as to preparedness, well, yeah, I sort of like that. I am sitting here talking on my phone using the 5G network. Not exactly sure what to say about that. Yeah, not really. I don't really have any backup. The power really rarely, if ever, fails. And the internet. I switched to Vodafone, and they if the internet goes down, the NBN goes down, they flip me onto the 4G network. So I'm never without internet as far as I can tell. So it's sort of I don't really I'm not really prepared. VK2DY, back to net.
VK2DY, VA3A today, net control returning. Okay, Robert, well, no, it sounds like there's a lot of redundancy there on the internet side of things, so you may not have too much to worry about. And probably, anything like the Quebec ice storm is not a great concern in Sydney at this time of the year, because kind of going into the warm weather, and we're going into the cold weather. So at least you'll be protected by your own climate from heavy snow and ice. But who knows? Maybe there's violent storms in the summertime. I'm not sure. Anyway, well, you cross your fingers, and at least your internet will work. So that's a good sign. And yeah, good to hear that the restrictions are lifted, and there's a little bit more travel. I think I mentioned last week the restrictions here in Canada were. I guess the Americans, they changed their rules, and now we can go by land into the United States if we have to, with as long as you're vaccinated and all that sort of stuff. It's not a problem. That was closed off for months and months and months. You could go in by air, but not by land. So that's kind of good. Okay, Robert, we got you down here for the first round, and thanks for participating. And let's go to Harold, and Harold, I think, is in. Yes, I think he's in Florida. Harold, I hope all is well with you. Welcome to the net, and I'll pass it over to you. Net control to N4RNW.
Well, thank you, Brian, and everyone else. I just thought I'd hang around here on a Tuesday night and see what the net is all about. Our weather down here in Florida is a little bit different than yours north of the border, north of the northern border. But still, we have these things running around in the summertime called hurricanes, and they can mess around with power and all that. So haven't had any problem this year, but when I see one of those things that's aiming for Florida, then I charge up all my radios and all my extra batteries just in case something might go down. But other than that, I'll be listening here, and thanks for calling on me. And everyone, have a good night or a good morning over there in Australia. N4RNW, Harold in Southwest Florida.
N4RNW, VE3, A8, net control returning. Okay, Carol, well, you're welcome to join anytime you're able, and we're here every Tuesday night at 8:30 local time in Mississauga. This is the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net, and certainly welcome anyone who would like to participate via Echolink or RF. And we're glad you're able to make it. And sounds, yeah, you probably have a fair bit of experience with this problem then, because as you say that you're right on the track. Florida is like, oh my goodness, right on the hurricane track, and you've even got the season, of course, the hurricane season. They come off Atlantic there, I guess, and create all kinds of havoc. And I'm sure people have seen quite a bit. I've seen that on television sometimes when they come in. This tremendous amount of water is dropped all over the cities down there. So yeah, you probably have a little more experience than we do with that kind of thing. And well, hey, you charge up the batteries and away you go. You never know what you'll need on short notice. Well, thanks for joining us, and let's go down to Ron now. That's KC4BOG, and Ron's in Indiana. Ron, welcome to our net, and we'll pass it over to you. Net control to KC4BOG. Okay, we'll give Ron another try here. That's KC4BOG. Ron, if you're there, come on in. Over to you. Okay, nothing here at all. We'll keep Ron on the list. Maybe he got pulled away there for a bit. We'll see if he might give an opportunity to get in a little bit later. And that brings me to the end of my short time check-ins. So I think we'll move now to our general check-ins to the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net. And we'll take RF first. We'll take anyone on our local repeater here, VE3MIS. So if you're out there on RF only and you're a general check-in, come now please with your call sign spelled phonetically, followed by your first name.
A3 Golf Delta Zulu, Gary.
Victor Echo 3, X-Ray Bravo Hotel, Brian.
Cut, Barry.
Victor Alpha 3 Hotel Echo Sierra. Mark.
There, I think I heard VE3WBF on RF, and I heard VE3HES Brian on RF, and I heard VE3GDZ Gary on RF. And I'm just going to turn now for some Echo Link check-ins, some general check-ins, and we'll take those first, and then we'll go to the top of the list. And Gary, you're going to be the first man tonight in the general group. So if there's anyone out there on Echo Link who would like to check into the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net, Echo Link only, come now please. General check-ins, Echo Link only.
Victor Alpha 3, Kilo Yankee. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Hotel Golf Uniform, Bob, North Central Texas.
Okay, Net Control acknowledges two more check-ins via Echo Link. I heard KF5HTU, that's Bob in Texas, VA3 and VA3KKY, Kevin in Toronto. Okay, so we'll go to the top of the list here, and we have Gary. Gary, I hope all is well with you. I got your email there about hydro rates and things jumping. I thought it was quite amusing. Anyway, well, I thought about making a question tonight about hydro rates, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. Net Control to VE3 GDZ.
Good evening there, Brian, and everybody on the net. Nice to hear you in there, and really good to see the ham conference with all their links joining us tonight. Makes it a lot more interesting. I probably will be one and done because I got to get back out in the yard. I've set up my telescope tonight to look at a couple of the planets that are well positioned. Anybody who goes outside and has clear skies can see Jupiter tonight. It's the brightest thing out there. And even with binoculars, you can see 4 of the little moons. They look like little stars. 3 are off to one side and 1 on the other. And with a small telescope, you can see the rings of Saturn. They're tilted towards the Earth right now, so it's a pretty good view. Anyways, that's off topic. I wanted to tackle your question. Your question was, how long could you operate? Let it drop for a sec. Yeah, I think I'm pretty well scuppered. Don't get me into the ice storm. If I get into that, boy, I'm going to go on and on. I would be relegated to my car battery because I can disconnect the radio I'm on right now. I'm on an ICOM, and I could plug it into the car battery, and then in the car I could run it for a while off the car battery, and that's about it. So what I'm doing ever since some of these disruptions we've had, I never let my car run below about 1/3 full in the winter months. So at least I got some fuel because the gas stations don't pump when the power is out. And I always leave some propane in my barbecue. I put the barbecue away, but I always leave, again, about 1/3 or 1/2 a tank there because sometimes that's all you can use to cook your food. I hope that answers your question. I probably couldn't operate for long. Back to you. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary, west end of Toronto.
Victor Echo 3, Golf Delta Zulu, VA3A Net Control returning. Okay, Gary, hey, that sounds pretty good. You're being resourceful. You're getting kind of dual use out of various systems. Kind of reminds me too. I forgot. I have a starting battery connected to an outboard engine, and I guess I could kind of call that into service if I needed it, as long as it didn't draw too much power. Then of course you've got your car battery, and one of the things I always wish I had in relation to propane was like some kind of generator that was small and portable that ran on propane, because then I'd get kind of dual use of the propane. I could use it to cook, and I could use it to produce electricity if I ever needed to. But yeah, it's kind of nice if you have camping equipment anywhere. You probably have propane somewhere. So, and I have a little bit for that purpose. But I wish I had a generator that I could twist those bottles into, or connect a hose to, and run a propane-based generator. I don't even know if there are such things. I imagine there are, but most of them are gas things. Anyway, a good answer there, Gary, and we're glad you could make it. Even if you're not here, we'll make a call for you anyway in the second round, and we're glad you could make it into the first round. I'm just going to take a quick break here, quick standby. Okay, net control is back here. So that was Gary. And now we've got VE3XBH. And Brian, of course, Brian is quite familiar with some of these problems because he runs the Aries group. And I'm sure he's thought about this on a few occasions, with at least the possibility of being without power. So, Brian, we're glad you can make an insight. Always good to hear from you. And net control to VE3XBH.
VA3AZA, VE3XBH. Good evening, Brian, and everybody on the net. And hello to Bob out in Mesquite. Nice to hear you in there, Bob. Good to hear you tonight. And of course, Reg, I see is in there somewhere. So we got the whole gang here, so all good there. Well, I have thought a lot about what to do with the power failure. I don't currently have a generator, although I would like to get something. But I do have a battery and inverter. It's a power station sort of thing. So it's about 100 or 400 watt inverter. So I can run off of a battery. It's a 12 volt battery also, so I can plug a radio directly into the 12 volt battery and use that. The inverter will give me a little bit of light. If I use LED lights, then I can get quite a bit of time out of it. And other than that, I'm kind of pretty much in the same boat as Gary. I've got radio in the car, so I could always operate out of the car. And I usually keep the tank topped up as best I can. That's pretty much what I'd be able to do. So could run for a couple of periods. I also have a couple of handhelds that I usually keep charged, so I could kind of go through them until the batteries in them go. So, but that's pretty much it. Other than that, all is good here, and hope everybody's well. And I'll send it back to you, Brian. VA3AZA, VE3XBH.
VE3XBH, VA3AZA. Next over, sorry. Okay, Brian, good to hear from you. And Brian, your audio for some reason was clipping. I don't know why. I heard like 95% of what you were saying. I had no trouble with. I could understand everything, but it was clipping. I don't know why. But so yeah, you've got a couple possibilities in there that kind of they run parallel to some of the other ones that we've heard as well. And it is surprising sometimes how quickly your handhelds can be run down. I was just thinking about it today. I charge my handheld every day practically. There's one that I take it with me in the car just kind of as a beacon, an APRS beacon, and I'll listen to a few things on it. I got a main mobile radio, but this handheld I charge it every day. So I have to kind of keep an eye and make sure it always is ready. I'll have to plug it in tonight so I can take it tomorrow to work. But that's it's a little tricky. Having the redundant systems that could keep you on for very long it's a little bit tricky. And with generators, gasoline generators, I'm just not crazy about having too much gasoline around or ever having to siphon it out of the car or something like that. But anyway, thanks very much, Brian, for joining us here in the first round. Hopefully we'll keep you on the list for the second round. Hopefully you'll be here. Let's go to Barry, VE3WBF. Barry, come on in. We'll pass it to you.
VA3AZA and the net. This is VE3WBF. Well, Gary's sparked my interest, and that's VA3CDZ. And I'm getting my heavy coat on, and I'm going outside, and I'm going to stare at the planet. Gary and I have the same hobby. Anyways, I'm not prepared for anything. If the power goes out, everything else goes out. So back to the net. This is VE3WBF. Over.
VE3WBF, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Barry. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we're all sort of challenged by the possibility of a long-term power outage. Yeah, the short stuff is okay. I find I tend to think more about short-term outages. I think, okay, well, I can hang on for a little bit. If you're in a big city, probably the power utility will make quite an effort to get everyone back online because there are so many people depending on it. So I kind of bank on it that way and look sort of for short-term power, maybe 8 hours or so, but even that's a long time. Okay, Barry. Well, that's good. You can check in with us here in the first round. We'll keep you on the list for the second as well. Let's go down to Kevin, VA3KKY. Kevin, how are you this evening? Net control to VA3KKY.
Not too bad at all. Hope everyone's having a very good Tuesday evening. And, well, we've had a couple of practice runs in the last few years when they were working on the transformers here in the different areas of where I live. And so there would be times we would get notices that we would be out of power. Sometimes, well, once it was for 9 hours. It was hardly 2 hours. So at least they're making good on that. Another time, what they said in that. Another time, I don't remember, it was some estimated time, and at least they didn't have to use it all. But I remember 2014, that little ice storm, which affected things here. And I almost wanted to check into those heating centers or cooling centers just because it had gotten so cold. Because I don't have AM or FM anymore. I used to in the early 2000s, like have a little clock radio, but no, in the past few years I've relied on Alexas and Echoes and Google Minis. But I was kind of screwed without it because that's kind of how I get my AM, FM, and it's also a clock. It's a thermometer. I mean, it's a lot of things. So I don't know. I think if it happens. If it's deadly cold, like it was in those years back, my only answer at that point would just be to simply leave for a while and things clear up. The only reason I didn't that last time was I wanted to find out how things were at the house. So that was the only thing, and that was, years ago when there was that major ice storm that shut a lot of things down here. So we've had practice runs. Oh, and then that big thing in 2003 that happened for a good few days. It affected us for 36 hours. Well, I was just kind of miserable. I didn't have anything to, play on my computer and stuff. But the only good thing about out of that was at least it was in the dead of summer. So where it was hot as ever, but at least it wasn't in the winter, where you freeze your fingers and toes. I hate it when it happens in the winter, but if it's not convenient at all, when is a good time for it to happen? There you go. Anyways, I'll be here, and I'll pass it back to Net, VA3KKY.
VA3KKY, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Kevin, yeah, you mentioned a couple I'd forgotten about there. Yeah, the 2014, that was quite a bad one, too. That was really cold. I remember my sister-in-law had to kind of abandon her house with her family, and they were practically living at my brother-in-law's office for a period until the power came up in North York. That was really cold. It was very, very cold. And the one in 2003, that was the Lake Erie Loop, I think. I remember that one, too. That was in the middle of the summer, so that one wasn't, we weren't at risk of freezing to death. But I remember there was some risk of losing food because it was out for a long time. Anyway, there's lots of precedents in there for being somewhat prepared if you can. But it's just, I guess it's expensive to be prepared for a long-term outage, and doesn't really happen that often. Anyway, we'll keep you on the list here, Kevin. And I noticed there was a little bit of, I think there's packet loss. I know with Brian, I noticed some, it sounded like he was clipping in his audio, and maybe he wasn't. Maybe it's something in the internet, I'm not sure. But it was happening a little bit with you there too, Kevin. We'll see. We'll see how it goes here. Maybe it's just a congestion problem. Let's go down to Bob, KF5HQ, Bob. And I hope you are doing well. Nice to see you in the net here. And you're in a part of the country that gets some pretty awful weather at times, I think, because all those storms come off the Caribbean into like South Texas, don't they? And they blow up kind of go up the center of the state. But anyway, maybe you can tell us. Net control over to KF5HQ.
VA3AZA, KF5HQ. Well, we do run into that. That happens. The one thing that I do remember earlier, and hi to Brian and to you, and I see Reg on the list, and BK2DY, and Johnson, HJQ, I've got to get it right. Anyway, I was talking about earlier, and this year, back in February, I think it was, we had an ice storm, and literally it just about shut down the whole state. And I'm going to unkey here for just a minute. Well, sorry about that. I almost lost my connection there for a minute. But anyway, the cold weather in the whole state, my household was very fortunate. We lost power at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, power came back on, and it stayed that way. I do know of several people that were out for weeks. Some friends that I had, their power went off about the same time mine came on, and it was off for 7 days. So during that cold period that we had, then you probably heard, that's back in February. I think, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 10 people lost their life because they didn't have warmth. Most of them, I think, were seniors. But anyway, it was made the national news. Got all of the legislature all stirred up about the grid arrangement and backup and preparation. Other than flashlights and the battery radio, I do have a couple of wind-up flashlights where batteries are not required. They're short-term, but they fit in pretty easy. That's about it, along with everything else that's already been covered, and good to be on the net. I've been sick for a while, but I'm better, and I keep forgetting about the Tuesday nights, but I finally got a big note up on the board. Brian Keeper was reminding me about it, and I got a big thing to help me remember where it is. It's enjoyable to hear everybody and enjoy this talk to you. Hi, Brian. VE3AZA, KF5HQ, 7-3 to you and all the group.
KF5HQ, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Bob, great to hear from you, and glad you're feeling well. And it's really nice to have you participate this evening. Look forward to hearing from you. And you've got there's quite an interesting recent history actually in Texas, I guess, and some other states with some very bad weather and the impacts on the power planning and all that sort of stuff. So so I guess there were some fatalities associated with those loss of power. And it is funny, too. You mentioned on one occasion you lost power for about 12 hours. Another person lost it for days and days and days. I had the same experience here a couple times in Mississauga. And I guess it's just a matter of how the grid is set up, how the infrastructure is set up. With so much of the power here, I guess, is delivered like subterranean lines to the homes. But there's, in older parts of the city of Toronto, I think there's a lot of stuff in the air, so it's a little bit more exposed to the bad weather, and some of the people in those areas of the city of Toronto really lost power for a long time. I can remember on one episode, like my sister-in-law they didn't have power for days in December once. We lost it for 2 hours. towers out here in Mississauga. It's a suburban city, just I guess because the infrastructure is a little bit different. Anyway, good to hear from you, Bob. We'll look forward to hearing from you again in the future. We're here, of course, we're here every Tuesday night. I better take a quick standby here. VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, and that brings me to the end of my list of check-ins for the gentleman around here. I'm going to look for a few more, though, and let's see if there are any RF check-ins. RF only if you're out there on RF and you'd like to join us. Come now, please, with your call sign spelled phonetically, followed by your first name, RF only.
Victor Echo 3, Alpha, Juliet Foxtrot, name is Amnon.
Victor Alpha 3, Hotel Echo Sierra, Mark.
Okay, net control turning. And I think that was Amnon, and I think it's VA3AGF, Alpha Juliet Foxtrot. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Amnon. We'll come back to you. I think it's been a while since I've heard from you. Let's see if there's anyone else out on Aqualink who would like to join us in this first round of the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net. If you're out there on Aqualink and you'd like to check in, come now, please.
On Echo Link from the west side of the Big Island, BK6BQQ. Good morning.
Okay, net control returning, and net control acknowledges VK6BQQ on Aqualink. We've got you on the list of Reg. And let's go to Amnon first, and you might have to correct me with the call. I had VA3AGF, and maybe it was a VE3, but you can correct me. Net control to Amnon, VA3, I think, AGF.
Yeah, correct, Brian. It's Victor Echo 3, Alpha, Juliet Foxtrot. And nice to hear Reg on VK6BQ. Haven't talked to Reg in a long, long time. So, welcome to the net, I guess, Reg. Anyway, Brian, I was sort of listening in and out. I was switching between frequencies. And, you were talking about power outages. When we had that ice storm, we were one of the lucky ones. We were without power for only 26 hours. And as it was approaching 25 hours, the house was getting pretty close to 0 degrees. So I opened up all the faucets to keep the water running so the pipes don't freeze. And after that incident, I went out and bought a 2800 watt generator, and I put a transfer switch on the furnace so I could switch it between mains and the generator. And of course, since then we haven't had a single power outage. Back to you, Brian. VA3AZA, VE3AJF.
VE3AGF, VA3AZA. Okay, Amnon, that sounds like an interesting arrangement. And yeah, for sure. When when it goes out, it's kind of a shock, and you sort of realize how significant a backup might be. But coordinating it's always a bit of a trick. But well, it sounds like you got something there to tide you over. So maybe a little bit better than just a battery too. So. I have a couple batteries here I could call into service. One was intended specifically for that purpose, and but the others are sort of serving other roles at various times. Anyway, thank you for coming in on this first round of the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net, and we'll keep you on the list here on that. And let's go down to Reg, VK6BQQ. Reg, hope all is well with you, and maybe you have some contingency plans too for loss of mains powers. Net control to VK6BQQ.
VA3AZA in the group, VK6BQQ. Well, good to hear Bob and Amnon. My goodness, I haven't heard from VE3AJF for a long time. We still have the nets going, Amnon, Friday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard, so join us when you can. But, yeah, backups. Well, you know, we go right back to the very start of things. Fire. We have candles. And radio and lots of cable, lots of connectors, lots of antennas. So we could go remote if we have to. But good to hear everyone in here this evening. My morning, your evening. Time travel at its best. Net control, VK6PQQ. Good morning.
Well, VK6PQQ, Net Controller Treaty, VE3MIS today. And Reg, okay, Reg, yeah, it's morning for you, and you're right, a little bit of time travel here. It's about 9:17 local time, and 9:17 p.m. locally here in Mississauga, and you're on the other side of the day, and also on the other side of the seasonal cycle, too. So here I am thinking about winter storms, and that's probably the last thing on your mind. But you might get a few of those separate strips flowing through, as you say. And it sounds like you got lots of equipment there, too. You can, I guess the other thing, you can always improvise. You know, if you have enough pieces, there's usually some way to improvise. It's hard to improvise, I guess, a power source, but you never know. You might find them in all sorts of different places. Under cars is the most obvious place, I guess, to look. I have to admit, I'm kind of surprised. The battery in my car is almost 6 years old, and it still works, so I'm happy about that. And the last car I had to replace the battery a few times. It didn't last 6 years. I think it lasted 3 years. I had two batteries that lasted about 3 years, so this one's really good. Anyway, Reg, good to have you on this round of the net. And let's see if there's anyone else out there, either on the RF or Echolink, who would like to join us at the end of the general check-in round. So if you're out there on RF or Echolink, come out, please, with your call sign spelled phonetically, followed by your first name.
Victor Alpha 3, Hotel Echo Sierra, Mark.
Okay, Net Control acknowledges Mark, VA3HES. So Mark, thank you for the the setup on YouTube. And I know you're coordinating all that, and that is appreciated. I hope all is well with you this evening, and we'll pass it over to you. VA3A today, over to VA3HES.
VA3AZA, VA3HES. Good evening, Brian, and all on net. Apologies, I tried to key up earlier, but I realized I had the tone off on my radio, so I was talking to nobody. All well here, and great question for tonight. Before I forget to mention, yes, we are live on YouTube, so if you're curious to hear your transmitted audio, head over to YouTube and search for VE3MIS, and you'll find the Tuesday Net live stream playlist, and you'll see tonight's and all the previous nets. Great question for tonight, and I'm going to drop for a second. I have a 23 amp hour battery, lithium iron phosphate battery that I use for field work that I keep charged all the time. I also have two older sealed lead acid batteries. So between those three, I could probably operate at QRP levels for at least 24, if not 48 hours, less if I were to operate high power. And I also have a generator, and like Amnon, I have a transfer switch for the furnace in the house and for the little furnace in the garage. And I actually set up something similar for my parents. I don't know, it was maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago. We had a bad storm, and I know power was out in the Toronto area, and my parents were without power for geez, the better part of 3 or 4 days in Rexdale. So they were the first one to get the jury-rig version of the transfer switch and a little generator, so at least the pipes wouldn't freeze and they could stay in the house. That's all for now, Brian, and back to you. And thanks for hosting the net, VA3AZA, VA3HES.
VA3HES, VA3AZA, net controller training. Okay, Mark, yeah, that must have been that storm in 2014. You're saying the one that was about, it's 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, that was quite a bad one. That's the one where I say my sister-in-law was kind of forced out of her house to her husband's office, where they kind of bunked down for a little bit. It was, if you can imagine, not an ideal situation, but. Anyway, I'm using, as I mentioned, I switched my headset from the old one to a Logitech headset. So I think my level was higher. I don't know why. I mean, I didn't change anything in Echolink, but the microphone on this headset just works differently. So I assume it's okay. I haven't heard any problems with it yet so far. So the other one is just naturally has a very low level. Don't know why. Okay, that brings me to the end of the list for the first round, and let's see. I guess we should go back up to the very top, and I know we've got a few call signs here. Maybe there was one who couldn't get in on the first round. We'll definitely make a call for that individual too. But let's see if Murray is still with us. And Murray, if you're still there, come on in for a 7-3 net control to VE3JMY.
Very fine net. I'm portable in the front porch at this transmission, and topping up the gas tank I think is a great suggestion. I have a fireplace that hasn't been used for a few years, and daughter, I think, has a propane fireplace as a backup. Fine net. Have a great week. Back to you, Brian.
VE3JMY, VA3A today. Actually, Barry, there's a good source of warmth. Just a no fireplace. That'll without obviously gas or anything like that. But that's an excellent source. I'm thinking, I mean, an outdoor fire is nice, but in the city, you're not supposed to do that thing. And I guess also you would stay very warm when you're in the house if you have an outdoor fire. But fireplace with the indoor fire is very nice. Okay, Marie, good to hear from you, and we'll look for you next week too. And let's see if John is still there. John has all his batteries. He was giving the impression that he wasn't prepared, but it sounds like he's very prepared. We'll give him a try again here, maybe for some closing thoughts on this. Net control to VK3HJQ.
Thanks, Brian from VK3HJQ. Well, it was the internet. I couldn't afford to have the internet go down. We only have the power go up here very rarely. Where we used to live, or we were next to, basically just down the road from the hospital, and the power never went off, or if it did, they'd restore us straight away because the hospital would be down. And then when we shifted some 30 years ago, well, 32 years I think I've been living here, which is only like a kilometre and a half where I used to live, so it really went a long way. We get set off the main trunk that supplies the whole town, and we have three-phase power here, so it very rarely goes off as well. But yeah, and I was just looking at it one day, and I thought I should make a battery backup for that router because now it runs the VoIP and runs all that. And you can't do it without the internet. Like, it's hopeless. So the power goes down, you have no phone and no internet. So I've got these, like I said, I've got these batteries sitting on the breakfast bar with me where my ham shack is now. 5 of them sitting there charging, sitting at about 13.3 volts currently. So I'm going to have to put those in a box. I figure that should give me, fair bit of capacity. Probably run it for, 5 or 6 days. The router only draws, well, it's got a 1.2 amp power supply on it, so it won't be too hard to work out how long it'll last. And it's 12 volt, which is good, so I can just put the batteries in. And I even bought a little swap changeover relay off eBay. It was only $3 or something. Had the relay and a couple of leads on it, so you could actually swap from mains to battery and back to mains again. So I thought, well, saving you making one, you can't. Time you buy a relay and get a bit of circuit will cost more than $3. So I've got all that. I've got a little box, and I've got holes drilled in it. I've got fuses on it. But, just hasn't been put into practice yet. Brian, back to you. thanks for running the net. Good job as usual.
VK3HKQ, VA3AZA, net conservatory. Okay, John. Yeah. So you definitely got all the parts there, and you're resourceful. So yeah, you probably have many hours among those batteries to run all sorts of old devices. I guess like routers don't require an enormous amount of power. Yeah, you'll be all set up. You can hold on to your internet connection, and then if you can do that, then everything's okay. Sounds pretty good to me. Thanks for joining us. It's such a pleasure to hear from you, and we'll look for you next week too. And let's see if Robert's still there. VK2DY, Robert, come on in for the 7-3 round. Net control to VK2DY.
Looks like he's disconnected, Brian, over.
Oh, Roger, John. Yeah, I guess I didn't look at my list. I was just looking. I didn't see him there. Okay, so maybe Robert is off for a little bit now. Okay, let's see if what we got here on the list. I think N4RNW. N4RNW. Don't see him on the list. I think he said he would be one round. And Ron KC4BOG. He may have come in the ham conference. Let's see if Ron's there. KC4BOG. Ron, if you're there, come on first. Round over to you, KC4BOG. Okay, nothing heard from Ron. And let's see, Gary, I believe, is looking at the stars. Gary's an amateur astronomer there, VE3GDZ. So I don't think we'll gee, he came in on. Let's see if he's there. There on RF, because I think he did come in on RF. He didn't come in on Echolink. VA3GDZ, Gary, if you're there, come on in for the 7-3 round. Over to you.
There, Brian, I rushed back in just for you. Hi. Yeah, I think since your time is reasonable tonight, I think I'll end with a very short story. It's about an article I was reading. You know, these days nobody believes what science is telling them. No one believes what they hear in the media. So I was reading an article about this, and they were talking about, the rampant commercialism that we're hearing these days as we approach the holidays. What do they think, what's the effect of nobody believing what they hear on that? And here's what he had to say. It's all about people being persuaded to spend money we don't have on things we don't need to create impressions that won't last on people we don't really care about. I thought that was a cute summary. Okay, 7-3 to all. This is VA3 Golf Delta Zulu, Gary in Toronto.
VA3GDZ, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Gary, wow, that's a dark view of things, but what can you do? Sometimes I'll tell you feel definitely. You would be very proud of me, Gary. I actually built a telescope, if you can believe it, a reflector, and it's in the other room, and I'm kind of thinking, well, gee, maybe if the planets are in such view, I should take mine out too. I built it a number of years ago. It's a Dobsonian reflector, and it's a little big though. I think it has a 6 or 7 inch mirror, but it does give some very nice views of Saturn actually. Speaking of Saturn, and I have seen the rings and Jupiter. I've actually seen the moons too. That's really quite an astounding sight. I mean, it's not, in a small telescope, it's not huge or anything, but it's just astounding when you see it. It's just wow. There's a planet with things orbiting around it. You feel like Galileo there, I guess. And this is all these millions of miles away. So good for you for going up to see that. Okay, let's go down to VE3XBH, Brian. And Brian, come on in for the 7-3 round. Over to you.
VA3AZA, VE3XBH. Well, Brian, not much else to add. Thanks for doing the net. It was a good net tonight. I'll make a comment about what Gary was mentioning, and I remember hearing this someplace. They said that as far as advertising goes, if you tell the general public often enough and say it with enough conviction, eventually they'll believe it. So whether that's true or not, I can't say. But anyways, thanks for doing the net, and good to hear everybody tonight. So I'm going to say 7-3. Everybody stay well, and we'll probably talk to you next week. VE3MIS VE3XBH.
VE3XBH, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Brian, and we'll take note of that. I I have a friend who he says he refuses to read the news anymore or look at news. He only reads and looks at very sort of specialized journals, and I guess it's get away from some of the hard sell that you find in almost everything, not just advertising, but sometimes you can find it in so many different things. But he feels the same way about it, I think. Anyway, good to hear from you, and we'll look for you next week too, and look forward to participating as usual there, Brian. And that brings me down to VE3WBF. That's Barry. Barry, if you're still there, come on in for the 7-3 round. Over to you.
VA3AZA and the net. This is VE3WBF. I popped out and had a look at the planets. There's cirrus clouds are coming in, so it's sort of obscuring the Saturn. But other than that, it's a good view out there, and it's cold. It actually smells cold. So I'm going to say good night to everybody, and back to net control. This is VE3WBF. Over.
VE3WBF, VA3AZA, net control returning. Okay, Barry. Well, that's I guess it's a little cooler out there. My son just came in. I don't know if he was looking at the stars tonight, but he was out for a walk there, and maybe he saw some of the sky too. But I haven't been out this evening, so I might take a look too before I go to bed. Okay, that brings me down to Kevin, VA3KKY. Kevin, come on in for the 7-3 round. Over to you.
Yep, no problem. And I'm just thankful in a place like Toronto, too. That's one of the things I found out 7 or more years ago that they have, like all those places that you could dip into when it's freezing cold. And it would have been cool to go into one of those places and buy something at the food court or something, and just to kind of kill a few hours while resolving things. But what happened, right, was I wanted to make sure things at the house was okay. So I stayed at the house. But they were things to think about, just in case I needed to do that when it was terrible, unbearable cold. Okay, yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Hey, I'll say 73 to everybody. I'm going to go to bed, probably fall asleep listening to a talking book. And then that'll be that. We'll catch some of you guys around the band, as always. And I know there'll be those of you on Friday chilling out with Red. All right, so see you there. Anyway, 7-3 for now. Back to that, and thanks a lot from VA3KKY.
VA3KKY, VA3AZA, net control training. Okay, Kevin, glad to hear you this week, and we'll look for you next week too. And yeah, I guess I keep thinking about that one storm from a few years ago. It was really, really cold, and just being people actually did. They left their homes and went to any place that was warm. It's kind of scary. I think here, leaving everything, and everyone knows that people have left their houses and such, and there's no power. A little bit scary, but that was a very unusual event here. I remember that quite well. Okay, let's see. That brings us down to Bob, KF5HTU, and Bob. I guess Bob's still there. We'll give him a call here and see if he wants to add anything to the pot on net control to KF5HTU.
VE3 today. Well, I don't have much to add other than a very good net. Thank you for doing it. I dozed off, I think, a little bit. Well, it's one of the things I've noticed. I used to be a night owl. I mean, I used to stay up oh Lord, 11:30, 12, 12:30, whatever. And of late, since I went through all my treatment and what have you, I get fatigued at 8 o'clock, and I'm doing good if I stay up till 8 o'clock. In fact, I've dozed off a couple of times this night, and so I wanted to stay in for the end of the second round at least once. Take care, my friend. Thank you very much for doing the Met. 73 to all, and good to hear all the guys, and we'll be back next week. K5HGU, 73, my friend.
Okay, F5HGU, VA3 net control returning. Okay, Bob, great to hear from you. Oh, I know what you mean too. I used to stay up so late, and then I still get by on like 5 hours sleep for a couple of days each night going to work. But not anymore. It's terrible. I just I have to practically drink coffee in the middle of the evening there to stay awake. I don't know. I just get really tired now. But anyway, I made it through tonight, so I'm glad I got the two. Actually, when I get doing the net, I get more energy, I have to admit. So that's a big plus with doing it. But Bob, good to hear from you. We'll look for you again next week too, and it's always nice to hear from you. I'm glad you're able to make it back here. Let's see, VE3 HAF Amnon. Is Amnon still there? I think he's on RF. Amnon, come on in for the 7-3 round. Over to you.
Yes, Brian, I'm still here, listening along. I should join this net more often. I used to in the past, but somehow so many other nets going on, I forgot about this one. But I'll mark it down in my log, make sure that I join the net as often as possible. And yeah, I forgot to mention, in addition to the generator, I also have a 1,000 watt inverter. Unfortunately, my backup battery gave up the ghost, so I've had a chance to replace that one, but that's coming up next. And as far as going out on the internet, my router/modem is battery backed, so I can access the internet using either the iPhone or the iPad. I don't have a backup on the computer, so the computer won't be any good. Anyway, Brian, 73 to you and all on frequency, DA3AZA, V3AJF.
VE3AJF, VA3AZA, net controller training. Okay, I'm not. There's you're a little bit, you're struggling a little bit, or there's a little bit of crackling in your signal there on the last transmission. I got a lot of that. I could pick out a lot of it, but there was a little bit of static on it. I know the first time, actually on the first round, you had a little bit of static at first, and then it cleared. I wasn't sure why, but it was a little bit, it held on a little bit better. But anyway, we got most of that, Amnon, and we're glad you're able to make it in. I know there are quite a few nets, I guess, around this particular hour on Tuesdays, so I'm glad you made it to this one, and we'll look for you again next week, too. Let's see, we've got Reg here. Reg is next on the list. VK6BQQ. Reg, come on in from the 7-3 round. Over to you.
VA3AZA in the group, VK6BQQ. Well, we're good to hear Amnon in there this evening. You get a chance, Amnon, Friday nights, 8 o'clock. We're on this very network. Do join us if you can. Yes, always interesting, and emergency services. Well, that's what we are, each amateur is licensed, and we have our own complement of communication. So that's what it's all about. Keep your batteries charged and keep the candles lit. 7-3 for now. VK6BQ to Australia.
VK6BQQ, VA3A today, net control returning. Okay, Reg. Oh yeah, definitely. Keep the batteries charged and the candles ready, and we'll be all set. And that's for anything. Well, we hope. But like I say, I was surprised. I was just thinking about how my handheld is. Like I run it down every day, and so I'm gonna really keep an eye on it. Make sure the battery. It's not the battery's bad. I use it a fair bit when I'm in the car, so I got to keep an eye. Make sure it's ready. Okay, Reg, it was good to hear from you. Always good to hear from you. And we'll look for you again next week, too. And that brings me down to VA3HES, and that's Mark. And Mark, we'll pass it over to you.
VA3AZA, VA3HES returning. Well, 7-3 Brian, 7-3 everyone on frequency and on Echolink. Thank you for hosting the net tonight. I think the next thing on my ham radio shopping list is a 100-watt solar panel to go with the battery. That'll probably extend my runtime. And I do have a generator, though I must admit I didn't take it out this summer to service it. So maybe I should do that sooner than later. And I did notice a little bit of noise on Amnon. Amnon, nice to hear you join the net again. I'm going to have to plan another trip up to the repeater. I'm thinking the feed line may have a small issue again. But soon we'll see. Anyways, Brian, thanks again for hosting the net, 7-3, and catch you again next week. Back to you.
VA3HES, VA3AZA, next returning. Okay, Mark, yeah, we had a lot of static actually on your transmission, but we got some of what you were saying, and I'm glad you're around there for the second round, and to handle the YouTube, the simulcast with YouTube. And of course, we were kind of experimenting there with some different communication modes the other night, using the AFRS messaging. That was kind of fun. And it just occurred to me as we were talking about all this this evening that I suppose some modes might be inherently less power hungry than others. I don't know. That's just a speculation. I don't know whether it would be sending APRS messages, but anyway, maybe we'll save that for another net. There's another possible question for another night. Which mode would reduce the power consumption on your radio the most? Anyway, we'll consider that for some other time. So let's see if there's anyone else out there who would like to check in at the end of the second round of the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club 2-meter net. If you're out there and you'd like to join us, come out please with your call sign spelled phonetically, followed by your first name. Okay, nothing heard on that last call. I think I dropped on my screen, gave me the impression that I didn't actually drop, but the radio that I'm monitoring on did. So I think I dropped, and we had a chance for people to get in. I guess we'll bring the net to a close at this point, and thank you for joining us tonight. If you have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions, you can contact us via email at VE3MIS@RAC.ca. That's Victor Echo 3 Mike India Sierra at Romeo Alpha Charlie Charlie Alpha. This is VA3AZA closing the net and returning the repeater to general use. It'll probably hang on to the connection for a few more minutes. But thank you all for your participation. And 7-3.